The Twins took 2 of 3 from the Cubs, and it's Skenes versus Ryan on Friday at Target Field. This is Locked On Twins.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hello again, and welcome back to Locked On Twins. I'm one of your hosts, Brandon Warne. You can unfollow me on the tweets at Brandon_WARNE. I've watched the Twins for more than 30 years, covered them for about half that long, and you can find most of my work on my newsletter, Access Twins. With me, as always, Mr. Dave Brown, BBWAA member and Missouri native. How are we doing tonight?
Well, Missouri resident.
Yes.
Probably Chicago area native, but not that I'm correcting anyone, but it's all good, Brandon. Thank you. We're doing fine.
Good. And we will get to Twins taking 2 of 3 from the native Chicagoans from the north side. But first, thanks for making Locked On Twins your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. And of course, we're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which brings you your team every day. Love to hear from our everydayers in the comments. So again, feel free to be active. Drop us a line on the tweets at Access Twins, or even on the live stream, or if you're watching YouTube after the fact. We love to hear from you. And it's good for the algorithm to have people asking questions. So love to hear from you. I want to hang out with you in the comment section and all that good stuff. Today's episode, though, we are going to talk about the Twins taking 2 of 3 from a tough Cubbies team. I want to ask you about the different ways a series feels when you take 2 of 3. So we'll talk about that. Byron Buxton, how he's looking a day out after leaving the game. He got hit by a pitch and some concern there, but probably not as much as initially. And then also, too, obviously we can't just not talk about Joe Ryan versus Paul Skenes ahead of the final series of the unofficial first half of the season. Twins take 2 of 3. They fall in the finale 8-1. Cody Clemens home run, only offense on the day. Chris Paddack, not Scott Paddack, was not particularly good. And Colin Ray had the Twins kind of eaten out of his hand. So didn't really make sense. This was one of those weird series, and I feel like the Twins, I don't think data will back this up, but I feel like when they win the first 2 games of a series, game 3 is invariably a letdown, and especially like an afternoon letdown where, like, I used to remember leaving the ballpark after that game. You know, it's 5:30, 6 o'clock. You're going to get into traffic and all that. And it just felt like kind of a bummer of a tone to set for the rest of your day. The Twins just never seem to do well in those afternoon games when they're going for a sweep. Have you ever felt anything like that or noticed anything like that, or am I alone on this island?
Yeah, I don't know if it's and not in a Twins sense only, but having followed other teams closely, it always seems like the afternoon getaway day is the trap game. Like, no matter who you're playing, no matter what the pitching matchup is, who's in the lineup, there's going to be a sense of, I don't know if it's and I don't even know if this can be backed up with statistics, but it sure seems like the road team gets one over on the home team in these situations. I don't know if it's because the Cubs are excited to get on the bus and get on the plane and get out of town, or what. But the Twins have to leave too, but they're leaving home, so I don't know. It's one of those things that doesn't make a lot of sense. Colin Ray mystifying the Twins lineup. That's he's a guy. He's not a dude, but he's a guy who can go out there in sort of an Adrian Hauser way and mystify the other team. So yeah, it's I think a lot of fans from a lot of teams will get the feeling that those getaway days, series finales kind of things, so no matter what should happen, things go against your team. So I think you're not alone there, Brandon.
Well, and weirder yet, it seems to happen in the matchup with the least effective starting pitcher that they're starting, at least in my point of view. Obviously, Shota Imanaga is he's probably the best they can offer, and Cade Orton's pretty damn good, obviously early in his career. But if you were to look at it ahead of time and say, they're going to take 2 or 3, I think in theory you'd be banking that final game of the series knowing that Chris Paddack has been throwing the ball okay of late, and Ray, based on numbers, you maybe think he hit a couple homers or he doesn't strike anybody out. So you got a chance to put up 3, 4, 5 runs on him and piece together a win, kind of like they did in the first 2 games of the series. You get everything you want out of your starter, piece together your A bullpen, and win a nice, well-played game. Instead, that's the game they lose in the series. And I'm just mostly just saying, I guess that's just baseball.
Well, Paddack has been kind of all over the place this year. There were times when he was kind of saving the bacon of the starting rotation with really good performances. And his previous one against Tampa was okay. 5 innings, 2 runs allowed. So, in July, that wasn't bad. In June, 6.06 ERA and 6 starts. I would say maybe, and the 2 good starts that he had in June were in the beginning of the month. So he's hit a valley at this point. So, sort of like April was an okay time for him, and May was an okay time. Lately, he's sort of pitching like he did in that first start of the season. So that was stinky. So with your 4th and 5th starter, sometimes you are going to get results that are all over the map. I do know this, though. When you look at how Paddack is doing and you look at how Ty France is doing, and you see Zebby Matthews going through rehab assignments, you see Cody Clemens coming up and still hitting home runs, it would not surprise me if at some point this month, if things don't turn around for certain players, there'll be changes in how often we see them anymore. So the Twins are getting to the point where no matter what they do at the trade deadline, they have to play better, or else they're not going to be that much of a contender down the stretch, and they're going to have to make some decisions. So, Paddack, his ERA is back up to almost 5. It's not that's not what you want. If he's gonna go out there and give up 11 hits and 6 runs and all that stuff, it's you can't have him in the rotation forever.
Yeah, I feel like it could get to a point where, however Ty France were to leave, whether you DFA him or if someone comes calling and you decide you're waving the yellow flag instead of the white flag, it's not quite all the way out, but at some point you're really no worse off giving Aaron Sabato a look at first base, or Edouard Julien a look at first base, or Luke Keeschel. Like, not that you want to force any of those guys. Julien, he's going to have enough to worry about hitting. Keeschel, coming back off an injury, not really fair to play a newer position. And Sabato, obviously, very little time at AAA, but at his age, I don't know how much that matters either. He's just kind of who he is as a baseball player. You're not going to ruin him at 25, 26 years old. And besides that, you got Emmanuel Rodriguez you might want to get a look at. Carson McCusker, again, if things go to the point where you're kind of more or less without hope and you trade Harrison Bader, at some point you're going to want to get a look at some of these other guys, because I don't think, for as much as we're seeing people doing trade rumors for Joe Ryan or anybody else, I don't think the Twins would necessarily view this as a start over scenario. Now, where it gets complicated is Derek Falvey, and as everybody coming back, what's going to happen with ownership? Do you let potential lame duck anything make any meaningful decisions here in the next few weeks? There's some layers to all this that I think would be interesting to unpack, and I'm wondering if we'll get any answers, and if so, how soon.
I don't think there is enough time between now and the trading deadline for a massive sale off. I don't think to move Bader and DFAing anybody with a major league contract yet. I just don't think there's enough time for the what would have to happen is there would have to be some other kind of injury that is Pablo Lopez-esque, where a huge part of the team is out for a number of weeks after the trade deadline, almost into September. And I'm not wishing that. I'm just saying some kind of disaster would have to happen for it to be impossible for the Twins to compete
Yeah.
There's not enough time between now and August 1st, I don't think, for the Twins to fall out of the race just normally. So it would have to be something disastrous added on to whatever's happened so far for them to go into a mode where, all right, we're shipping all our assets and starting over, at least for one season. So I don't think there's enough time for that, honestly. I think they're sort of stuck in no man's land a little bit. And, I don't know if they're going to, and this is how I've thought all along, the way ownership is right now. I don't know that they're going to bring in anybody. I think they were lucky to get the Bader and Coulomb and the other, and France even for $1 million.
Yeah.
Just before the season started, because I thought that was kind of a bit of a surprise that they had that much financial flexibility. I don't know that there's no reason to think that is going to change in the next 3 weeks. So I think it is much more likely that the trade deadline is going to come and go, and we're going to see something similar to the last 2 seasons, which is almost nothing.
Yeah. Well, let's do this. I want to ask you one more thing about this Cubs series. And then speaking of injuries that could possibly have been that sort of level of concern, we'll talk about Byron Buxton. And obviously this is not meant to be a teaser, like we have any information that he's going to be out or anything. I'm just saying that's the kind of issue that could derail even a marginal push at the deadline. So we'll take a quick pause. We'll come back. We'll address both of those things. But not before we show some love to one of our newer sponsors, Open Phone. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. The last time you you had a service emergency and you need to get a plumber on the line, if you had a burst pipe or our dishwasher stopped working and we needed someone to help us out. Luckily, we had someone in our life to help us out. But if that first plumber hadn't answered the phone, you don't wait. You don't call back. You move on to the second one and the third one. And man, I tell you, if you get to the fourth one, that's pretty problematic. But you are going to keep looking until you find, and you're not going to circle back around. If the first plumber didn't answer, they're done. And they would have been okay if they had Open Phone. You need to have that reliable business line so you can get a hold of people. It's the #1 business phone system, that helps you streamline and scale customer communication all from an app on your phone or computer. For instance, my wife has her own business and she's got to find a way to keep those business and personal calls separate. There's lots of reasons, from even just how accessible you want to be outside of business hours, all that sort of thing. And just keeping business and personal stuff separate is good as a general rule as well. And if you decide you're not reachable at any moment, there's an AI agent who will handle your after hours calls, answer common questions, and capture leads so you never, ever, ever miss a customer again. Open Phone is offering Locked On Twins listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnMLB. That's OPENPHONE.com/LockedOnMLB. And if you have existing numbers with other services, Open Phone will port them over for you at no charge. Open Phone, no missed calls, no missed customers. All right, Dave, we are back here. I wanted to ask you what the difference in dynamic is. Like taking 2 of 3, we have that old adage, just take series, split your 4s and take 2 of 3. And that'll make you, I think it's like a 90 some odd, 94-8, whatever win team. But there's definitely different feels to taking 2 of 3. You win the first 2, you drop the last one. You win the bookends, you win the last 2 after dropping the first one. Does it ever strike you as just kind of weird how those dynamics are different, even though you end up at the same destination?
Yeah, I think that's one reason why baseball is kind of a funny sport to follow closely, game by game on Twitter, reacting to every play, every run scored, every swing, momentum swing, every apparent swing, every check swing. It's difficult to sort of keep in context what it is you're seeing because of what you just said, because you come out of a series against the Cubs having won 2 of 3, and really we should be happy with that. But what is our feeling like at this hour? We're like, well, they should have, if they'd gotten a hit out of Carlos Correa with people on base early in the game and gotten some runs against Ray, And if Paddack had, not had one of his worst starts in a while, blah blah blah, we could be talking sweep, we could be talking a winning streak. With the Pirates coming up and then the Rockies coming out of the All-Star break, you have delusions of grandeur about that kind of thing. But really, that's why keeping an even keel mentally and emotionally is really important for the players, the fans, whatever. You can get excited and get hype about something, and then come down and get back up later if you have to. No big deal. But sometimes it feels hard, but you don't really have an effect on how the team is playing necessarily. So it's no big deal. But yeah, it's baseball it's a long haul to 162 games. It's not an NFL season. It isn't even hockey or basketball. It's double that. So I think you need to be, you can't get too high or too low, but you also got to remember it isn't as bad as it seems when things are bad, and it's not as good as when they're going good. So just you got to get over the losses like this pretty quickly, and then just hope for a good series against the Pirates.
That's especially true too for teams that have ridden the highs and lows as blatantly as the Twins have this year too, to not let those go. And at this point now, to get to 500 before the break, you'd have to sweep. If you sweep the Cubs, you have a better chance of getting to 500 before the break. And that's pretty arbitrary. And two, the Rockies should help that pursuit. But again, too, you could sweep the Cubs, drop 2 of 3 to the Pirates, and get swept by the Rockies, or drop 2 of 3 to the Rockies. And it would just be, that's baseball, man. You just kind of have to roll with it. And at the same time too, though, I think 500 is the next step, then just kind of pushing beyond that. Their schedule out of the break, like you said, into and out of the break should allow them to make progress that way. But, we'll see if they can do that. In the meantime, Byron Buxton did not play in the series finale, got hit by a pitch, hand contusion on his backhand, if I'm not mistaken. Is kind of just a weird, we've seen more guys getting hit on the backhand at the plate. I feel like that's changed maybe a little bit more of recent. I don't know if it has to do with where the guys feel like they're padded and how they lean into things. I know, like Ty France, for instance, what did they say? He doesn't go up like this. He just kind of turns into it or something. Nevertheless, all the same, certainly a bit of concern as Horton hits Buxton, and he's now missed almost 2 straight games because it was very early in the game. Level of concern for you, though, as we come down the stretch, 3 with the Pirates before he makes the trip to Atlanta, hits in the home run derby again, knock on wood. No real reason to believe he won't be ready for that. But is any part of you concerned, like, this is coming at a bad time? It would be really nice for him to have 3 straight strong games into the break. Any sort of concern for you?
I mean, maybe a little bit. I think I felt some relief when Rocco seemed to say that the imaging didn't find any breaks. Thank goodness. Sometimes imaging doesn't always find a break the first time it looks, though. You go back later and look again with a different machine or whatever, and maybe you find something. Buxton and injuries, you can't be immune to just being concerned just because you're sort of always waiting for the other shoe to drop. He's been their best player. He's been one of the best players in the league. He's had a great season. And just from a standpoint of, you don't want something bad to happen to him because he means a lot to the franchise.
Right.
You worry about that kind of thing. You don't necessarily put so much worry on it, like, anytime Buxton, runs into the wall or whatever, you got to hold your breath. But, losing him for an extended period, I talked before about like bad events that could make the Twins sellers at the deadline. That would be one of them. If it turned out that Buxton's injury was longer and debilitating, that's different than losing, let's say, Larnach for a while. It's not quite the same thing. And that and a bunch of losses, and maybe you do in 3 weeks trade everybody. So I don't know. It's funny. You see things on Twitter. Some people on Twitter are like, yeah, maybe this means he won't play in the home run derby, and he'll just kind of sit out until the rest of the first half and then get going in the second half. That could be the scenario. And some people are like, yeah, well, I don't want him to do anything. Have him take a few days off here for the Twins against the Pirates and then come back during the home run derby, and so he can show off for all the fans. And I don't know about either of those takes, but I've seen them on Twitter a couple times. So I'm open to anything here. Nothing would surprise me. I hope he's really okay. If he has to sit out the home run derby now, maybe you sit out the home run derby. Like if there's any residual soreness on Monday, they should get somebody else.
I do trust that he'll make the right decision, though. That above all.
I think so. Yeah.
I just feel
he's a guy who knows himself.
And the team. He's a team first guy. So
yes.
All right, let's take a quick second. We will give some love to one of our sponsors, and when we come back, it's a big one. It's going to be a hot one. It's going to get hot in here. It's Nelly after Paul Skenes and Joe Ryan. We'll talk about it here in just a minute. Summer sports are in full swing. I know this, and Dave knows this as good as anyone, carting our kids to softball and baseball games and soccer games and all that fun stuff. But whether you're into baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling by getting in on the action? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while all your friends are getting sunburned at the beach or wherever they're getting sunburned. For me, it's mowing the lawn. Actually, I got to go out and trim my lawn. It started raining today, and I missed out. But what I didn't miss out on was the Twins dropping a game. But on Friday, Skenes, Ryan, we're going to talk about it here in just a minute. If you want to get in on that action, maybe you got an under for runs scored. I think that would probably be a pretty darn safe bet with the way these teams have been hitting and or pitching. So whatever you got for a little lead that you think can make you a little money, FanDuel wants to help you get involved. And what I love is not only is it easy to use, but I can get the money out when I win quickly. And it makes even regular season games feel like the playoffs, like a must-watch event. Whether I'm making a same-game parlay or just watching a bet ride into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm part of the action. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, Dave, let's ride this thing to the end. Locked On Twins, segment 3. We are going to discuss. I'd have to think about the last time the Twins had a pitching matchup as good as Paul Skenes versus Joe Ryan. I think if there's any Twins fan who doesn't know that much about Paul Skenes, first of all, where have you been? But second of all, like, how do you quantify what Twins fans should expect for, like, how good he is? Because I'm thinking, like, maybe not quite peak DeGrom 6, 7, 8 years ago, but like that level of, oh boy, this guy is going to come in, and if you scratch across one or two, you're going to need to try and make that work.
Yeah, that's a pretty good comparison. I would say, DeGrom and Strasburg.
Yep.
I don't know. Do I feel like they're a little better? Maybe. Yeah. And that's nothing against Skenes. I don't know. That's really a good question. When those guys came into the game, especially DeGrom, when he was at his best.
What about Jose Fernandez?
Yeah, not as good. No, I think Jose Fernandez and Skenes are more on the level.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm underrating Skenes a little bit. And this is not to underrate like any of these guys, but if DeGrom, you come in, you think perfect game tonight, maybe. I don't know that I necessarily feel that way with Skenes. As far as like quantifying how much we'll see him pitch, it's an interesting question because I got a chance to talk to him. They were in town for the Royals. He didn't pitch, but I talked to him for a few minutes and seems like a nice guy. And he's going through a thing right now where earlier in the season, he was either leading the league in innings pitched or close. And he's kind of dropped back to maybe third or fourth. They've been, you look at his starts, you see 5 innings, 6 innings, 5 innings, 5 innings, 6 innings.
Classic.
And yeah, and I'm like, all right. So what's, and some people are losing their minds. It's like, why don't you keep him out there for 7 or 8 innings? And he's like, we are whatever games under 500, whatever games out of first place. I'm 23 years old. I'm not going to overdo it right now because we are not winning. I thought it was really, honest, I guess, of him. I don't know. I don't know that answer is going to satisfy everybody, but
you can play the long game when you're 23.
You do. And I don't know. I haven't watched those games closely, these recent games. Like, how hard is he working? Has he been struggling with himself? And still, obviously, he's putting up a lot of zeros. Usually gives up 1 run, if that, and strikes out a bunch of guys, doesn't walk a lot of guys. He's terrific. He's got a bunch of different pitches. He's been kind of messing with his split finger fastball. It hasn't been quite as effective as it was before, but he's like, if I were to, he didn't say bet, but if I think that my splitter is going to be much better in the second half. So, hey, Paul Skenes, fantasy people or whomever, take that under advisement. So, but I don't think we're going to see him I don't think he'll get to the 7th. He hasn't been lately. They've been taking it easy. And I don't think it has necessarily anything to do with the All-Star game, which he might start again. But he'll probably pitch. I think, it might be kind of a tough 5 or 6 innings. And then the Twins offense can maybe get to their bullpen a little bit and push across a run and take home a low-scoring game.
That might be the blueprint for beating him. I mean, he's 4-7 or something like that. But the blueprint would be just if your starter can hold down a Pirates offense, it's just not particularly strong, and you get into their bullpen, and that's what happens. And the Twins will see, in addition to Skenes, it says Travis Adams, whether it's a start, a bulk roll, or whatever, against Mike Burrows, who I believe is one of the creators of Cheers. I'm not sure about that. And then Simeon Woods Richardson against Mitch Keller in the finale. That could be a pretty fun one. SWR quite a bit better of late. Keller, the numbers are never all that exciting, but he gives me that vibe that I get from a lot of guys where if they went somewhere else, they might have another gear. I always got that from Garrett Cole for one, but John Gray was one of my big, not man crushes, but get him somewhere else and see what he's capable of. And then speaking of, Twins have the Rockies coming out of the break, and I see a lot of guys like that too. Get guys out of Colorado like John Gray, and maybe they'll figure it out. So the Pirates series, you'd like to take 2 or 3. You really like to sweep, get you to 500 by the break, all that fun stuff. But coming out of the break, I'm curious. They have it projected on roster resource for Joe Ryan, Chris Paddack, which is flipping those guys. And then they don't have anything else. What do you think they're going to do with this rotation spot vacated by Bailey Ober? He can't come back. I mean, obviously with the break, that's 4 free days of recovery. I would think he'd probably need at least another rotation turn, maybe 2. Do you sense that they are going to want to actually do something there, or are they just going to kind of patch it together and then hopefully Ober's back with a minimum-ish stint? Or is Zebby close enough that they can count on that too? I don't think that's the case, but there's a lot of what's and ifs, and I'm wondering where you see it.
Yeah, I think they're in between a lot. The timing isn't great necessarily. I think they probably want to see Ober do a couple of rehab starts.
Hey, go get Rich Hill because they just signed Dallas Keuchel.
They did. I don't know. Is that to put pressure on Rich Hill? Has Rich Hill struggled lately? I haven't looked to see it.
I honestly, with Rich Hill, I'm not even thinking that much about results. He showed enough early that if he got knocked around a little bit, I'd still be like, this is still Rich Hill. This, you didn't expect much in the first place. You know? So I don't know. But Keuchel, that's they're really stockpiling guys who really finding reasons not to sign Zach Greinke to get him those last 21 strikeouts or something like that.
Yeah, I haven't heard. I mean, I don't know how you find Zach Greinke. I mean, I suppose you know his last known address, but I don't know if he's been working out or what, but
he just goes,
that
Zach,
would be
thank you, where the wind blows, and then send him his mail, because I feel like that's what it would be.
But to answer your question, the Twins are in a tough spot like right now in the next 3 weeks. Like if they wanted to do something with Ober's rotation spot or whatever, or make another change if Paddack continues to struggle, they don't really have the options. And I don't know, who they would sign, or are they giving Adams another chance? I think they kind of have to go with who they have for at least a couple more weeks. So next week with the All-Star game, and then one more week, and then maybe you can start to think about Zebby coming back, and that maybe is that next move. But it's going to be a couple more turns to the rotation before that happens.
At the risk of running long here, have they made a mistake by, one, maybe not showing more interest in Aaron Savali, two, not signing Kyle Gibson now that he hasn't pitched in 10 days? He's going to have to probably ramp up again. Or three, just going and getting Rich Hill. Have they made a mistake? Because as much as they want those guys to come back, not every game's a must win, like we joke in the group chat, but you can't light games on fire too much when you're 3 games under 500 in mid-July.
No, and when you do that and you get into bad ruts with your bullpen, it begins to affect other games too, where you get overused and so forth. I heard a complaint about, gee, I wish in spring training they had gone after a first baseman who's better than Ty France. With what money?
They would have liked you. I mean,
so you asked me maybe should they have gotten, even Rich Hill, should they have gotten this guy or that guy? I think they're, probably yes, but I don't know that the answer comes from the player personnel level as to why they didn't. So I think you can look back to that ownership situation again to see, and this is a team that Falvey's talked about it before. There's no such thing as too much pitching depth,
right?
As we were finding out. So right now, so there you go.
Yeah, everybody was so sure they should have dumped Paddack early in the season because they had enough pitching. I'm here to tell you.
Not me. Maybe me too.
No, you're right. Well, we appreciate people hanging out with us. I have at some point a special mailbag episode coming out here soon. We'll talk to a little bit more before the first half, and then I think we're going to do some fun All-Star break content with some forgotten Twins All-Stars and that sort of thing. But until we get along to that, thank you for making Locked On Twins your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night, every game, every night, wherever you get your podcasts all season long, or on YouTube. And again, thank you so much for hanging out with us. He's Dave Brown. Follow him on the tweets at DavidBrown_MLB. Follow me at Brandon_WARNE. And again, thanks. We'll catch you on the flip side. This has been Locked On Twins, and we'll see ya tomorrow night.